Welcome to our channel. Today we will be discussing the recent collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and its impact on UK startups. Silicon Valley Bank's UK arm is said to be declared insolvent by the Bank of England after its US parent company collapsed on Friday. Before we dive into impact of startups, it's important to understand the context of what's happening. Here's what you need to know. Silicon Valley Bank, or SVB, is a US based bank that specializes in serving the needs of tech startups and venture capital firms. SVB's UK arm has been a major player in the UK startup scene, providing financing and banking services to thousands of UK based startups. Now that we are caught up on a background, let's take a look at the most recent updates. The collapse of SVB's US parent company has sent shockwaves through the UK startup community, with many startups now facing an uncertain future. The Bank of England has stepped in to take control of SVB's UK arm, and eligible depositors will be paid up to £85,000 as part of the resolution process. While this news is certainly concerning, it's important to understand what it means for startups in the UK. Many UK startups have expressed concern about the impact of SVB's collapse on their businesses. With many startups banking exclusively with SVB, there are fears that the collapse of the bank could cause a funding crisis for UK startup ecosystem. Many founders are now scrambling to move their funds to other banks to minimize the impact of the collapse. We have seen how this news is affecting the startup community, but now let's hear from the founders themselves. Dozens of early stage companies have written to Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, warning of an existential threat to the UK tech sector. The founders warn that the collapse of SVB UK would cripple the sector and set the ecosystem back 20 years. We argue that many businesses will be sent into involuntary liquidation overnight, and that many other businesses, both in the tech sector and the wider economy, will be negatively impacted by these businesses going bankrupt. So, what should startups do in the wake of this news? Here is some advice from industry experts. If you are a UK startup that banks with SVB, it's important to take action to minimize the impact of the bank's collapse on your business. Here are some steps you can take. Contact SVB UK to find out how the bank's collapse will impact your account. Move your funds to another bank to ensure that you have access to your money. Consider diversification your banking relationships to reduce your risk exposure. In conclusion, while the situation is far from ideal, there are actions that startups can take to protect themselves and their businesses. The collapse of Silicon Valley Bank has sent shockwaves through a UK startup ecosystem. Many startups are now facing an uncertain future, and there are fears that the bank's collapse can cause a funding crisis for a UK startup ecosystem. If you are a UK startup that banks with SVB, it's important to take action to minimize the impact of the bank's collapse on your businesses.